Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers presented by Mortgage CS. Check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY to start your home buying process today. Company NMLS ID number 1464766. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the evening. Joining me today in studio is the one and only JP Zapata.
It's not post-game, huh?
And coming to us all the way from the land of the French, that's right, Montreal, Quebec, Canada, Charlie O'Connor. Quite a game last night. We're still kind of trying to wrap our heads around a 7-goal third period and the decision to start two guys with almost no chance of scoring in the overtime at forward against two all-stars. But let's just get right into today's show because we got a lot to cover. First, Charlie, I realized there was probably no practice today, night game, travel day. Everyone's hurt anyway, even if they wanted to skate. The big story, one of the 9 coming out of last night's game, TK takes the shot off the thigh. He looked real hobbled for a second. And Ryan Poehling, even to start the overtime, looked as if one of his hands was broken, honestly, the way he was protecting it on the ice. Did we hear anything about either of those guys? Do we know anything?
I haven't heard anything. What I can say about Poehling, and this is interesting, it doesn't mean necessarily that he's hurt severely or anything more than he was just getting treatment, but he was one of the guys that we asked for after the game to talk to because he was on the ice for the game-winning goal. He's a logical person to answer. He also scored to ask for. He also scored a goal. You know, he had a good game aside from that, so he's a logical guy to talk to. The way it tends to work, and just a little behind the curtain stuff for beat writers and people covering the team at games, we ask for somewhere between 3 and 5 players. And we get the ones that are immediately available, and then the PR guy will come out sometimes and give us a choice. And he'll be like, look, this guy or a couple guys or whatever, they're not available right now. They're getting treatment. Do you want to wait, or do you have everything you need and you want to just get Torts? And we were like, we'll just get Torts because the Flyers are traveling. It was just a weird setup. And also, if you wait 15 minutes, there's a chance you're not even going to get the guy anyway. If you get him, he might be pissed off that we waited for him. It's one of those things where it's sort of you kind of got to pick your battles. So we did not wait for Ryan Poehling, but you got a little piece of information there in that he was getting treatment. So clearly, on some level, he was hurting. Now, hurting does not mean hurt. There is a clear distinction this time of year. Everyone is hurting. There is no one on the Flyers in my mind that is not hurting. So was Ryan Poehling injured or was he just banged up? It's tough to say. Now, I thought that the decision to start overtime with Ryan Poehling, even if he was 100% healthy, was already questionable on its own. So if he was a bit hampered for that shift, that just made it even more questionable. But I'm not terribly concerned about Poehling right now. It's something to keep an eye on for tomorrow. As for TK, I actually kind of missed this because I was more focused on breaking down the goal and whatnot. But I guess the broadcast made a big deal about it. That tends to be what I notice is that when I'm at a game covering it and my mentions explode about something that I didn't think was that big of a deal, it must be because the broadcast thought it was a really big deal, and then everybody starts exploding in my mentions about it. I did not see the severe discomfort that Travis Konechny was apparently in. I guess it was made out to be a really, really big deal on the broadcast. All I can say is that he didn't miss a shift. He nearly scored a goal with 2 minutes left in the game. So I assume he's okay. Was he hurting? I'm sure he was hurting. Everybody's hurting right now. It looked like he took a shot to the leg. That hurts. But I'm not terribly concerned that Travis Konechny broke his thigh last night. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, I think a lot some of it is we just saw it happen and it looked not great, and then everyone based on the overtime starting lineup, everyone just may be looking for a little bit of an excuse for maybe TK can't skate and that's why he's not out there. It could be any number of things, but everyone just kind of looking for, okay, well, there has to be a reason, and John Tortorella obviously not helping us come up with a reason.
We could have gotten an explanation, the head coach would have talked to the media after the game. But
and we'll get into that in a little bit. But we're in this point now. We built up to this 7-game stretch, and really it was a month-long stretch against pretty much all playoff teams. There's a few in there, but really it was a lot of real tough games. But the 7-game stretch all against, basically legitimate cup contenders.
Yeah.
They finished 2-3-2. Not great, 429 points percentage, but they stay alive. They are still currently, by total points, in that third spot in the Metro, and now the next 6 games gets quite a bit easier for this team. As you can see, they are still, a point up on the Washington Capitals. The Caps, of course, have the 2 games in hand. And there's been a lot going on with this team that kind of makes this run, 2-3-2, not the most impressive record. But when you see everything that's gone into it, this team's resilience and their perseverance has been pretty impressive throughout this entire season. And Charlie kind of wants to get into a little bit of the banged up players. Like, we know Sealer, Drysdale, and Risto are just out. Obviously, they traded Sean Walker. So, that's 2/3 of your defense right there, not available. Before we get into everyone else, Charlie, I know the answer is no, but you're here. Sealer, Drysdale, Risto, anything new from Monday?
I mean, from Monday, well, what's today? Wednesday?
Something
Thursday? You can't throw days at me, Bill. I don't keep track of days at this stage of the season. I'm just running on fumes.
Anything from show 1 this week?
Well, obviously Sealer and Drysdale were both on the ice for morning skate on Tuesday, which is a really good sign. It's the first time. It's really the first time I've seen Nick Sealer, so that was good. Because last time I saw him was at the carnival and he had a walking boot on. So I hadn't seen Nick Sealer skating even on his own. Now, last week we did see Drysdale and Risto skating on their own at the secondary rink at the Flyers Training Center, working with Angelo Ricci and some trainers. So Drysdale appears to be making legitimate progress. He has progressed from skating on his own to skating with the team. Sealer has jumped straight into skating with the team. My guess is he was probably skating on his own secretly, because I don't think they would just immediately throw him right into a team session if he wasn't skating on his own. But it certainly seems like those 2 guys are the closest. The Risto stuff is interesting because he was skating last week, so that's a positive. There's just a lot of rumors. If I had to guess, this seems like something where there probably was an initial injury. Now the recovery is taking longer. I've heard some people theorize that maybe the initial injury got infected. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Some people theorize concussion. I don't think that's it. It just doesn't line up with what I've heard from people around the team. Like, just the way they've been discussing it, it doesn't line up with a concussion. They're obviously withholding information, but even by withholding information, you could sort of glean what it might be. I don't think concussion really lines up with that. I could be wrong, but it just doesn't really line up with what I've heard, with the rumors that are going around. So I don't think it's that, but it does seem like Risto might be the furthest away, especially given the fact that clearly Drysdale and Sealer went on this trip, skated in the morning skate. I don't think they're going to play tomorrow against Montreal, but maybe in the next couple games, you could see one or hell, even both come back. And that would be a great thing for the Flyers, even if, and this is what we're going to get into in a sec, even if they come back and are not 100%.
Yeah, and we talked yesterday if you could choose. It's funny, like we said yesterday if we could choose one of Risto, or Monday it was for Mailbag Monday, one of Drysdale or Ristolainen for the playoffs. Say they're like both 80%. If you had to pick one, we all said Risto because we want to see playoff Risto, and it's, I guess, a bit ironic that he's the furthest away at this point. But concussion, I hadn't heard that. You're kind of not dispelling it because who knows, but saying it doesn't really connect the dots. Man, if he missed this kind of time with a concussion, that would be very concerning.
For sure.
Like, for the future of his career. And what you can expect to get at him for the duration of this contract. I'm hoping to trade him this offseason. I can't imagine that would be all that possible. So we'll see how that goes. But Charlie, we know about the guys who are out. Obviously, we're waiting to see who comes back, Sealer, Drysdale, what have you. There's a lot of dudes, and it's this time of year. We know hockey. We know what it is. There's a lot of dudes probably playing through something right now, and that's probably what's most impressive about Yeah, listen, 2-3-2 in this 7-game stretch. Also, 5 of the 7 decided by 1 goal. Couple furious comebacks in there. The resilience, the toughness of this team, as we said, impressive all year. This team could use some time off, and I don't think they're getting it anytime soon.
Yeah, and it's not even just the fact, because, like, look, at this time of year, everyone is hurting, but it's the fact that key guys on this team seem to be the ones that are probably dealing with the most. Like, we talked about the defense, about Sealer, Drysdale, Ristolainen, and obviously they traded Walker. Travis Sanheim is missing pretty much every practice they can give him, and the Flyers have spun that as, well, we're just giving him that many minutes. No, you don't take a maintenance day on every single practice unless you're clearly dealing with something. So I think Sanheim, who's taken on, 25 plus minutes a night, he's banged up. Cam York, and everybody kind of forgot about this. Cam York had a legitimate shoulder injury right before the Stadium Series game. My understanding is that's not an injury that necessarily goes away. You just kind of deal with it. And I think he's just kind of been dealing with it for a month, getting 28 minutes a night some nights, which is wild, and it makes his play even all the more impressive given the workload he's been getting and the fact that I think he's kind of playing with 1.5 shoulders right now. Then you've got TK, who we long suspected probably came back from that, core oblique maybe injury, probably a little bit too soon. Might have played into why he wasn't scoring as much when he first came back from the injury, because it just didn't seem like his shot had the same zip. Now he gets a puck off his thigh. That's at the very least going to probably be a real painful looking bruise, I would assume. And then you got Sean Couturier, who came into the year as one of their most important players, was one of their best players in the first half, and he's clearly gassed. I mean, Danny Briere more or less admitted it on Snow the Goalie before the game this weekend, where he basically said, look, we acknowledge that Couturier is probably gassed. Part of the reason why he was scratched is because we're thinking, maybe that fuck you mentality will be able to let him find reserves he doesn't even really know he has. So, they know he's probably gassed. These are 4 of some of the most important, if not arguably the most important players on the team, and I think they're all playing through stuff. And the fact that the Flyers are not just hanging tough, because you made the very legitimate point that 2-3-2 isn't that great a record, and it's not. It really isn't on paper a great record, even given the competition. To me, the big thing, and this is what I kind of want to hear from you guys about, the big thing has been the improvement in the underlying quality of their play over the last 4 games, really since the Couturier scratch, because the Flyers had been tailing off in terms of their underlying play for quite a while before that. And again, this might play into the whole, I'm going to throw a bomb into the room because we need to shake things up, so I'm going to scratch the captain. Let's see what happens. But, looking at their last few games, really since the Boston game, Toronto, they play well. Carolina, they lose in overtime, but they skated right with one of the best teams, one of maybe the 3 top Cup favorites at this point after the Gensel trade. I mean, they're up there. Then they beat Boston, the team that they couldn't beat. Florida, they lose by a score that doesn't look good. They held them to 15 shots on goal. That's a game where you're like, hey, if Felix Sandstrom is league average, that game probably goes into overtime. And then the Rangers game, I wrote about it last night and this morning. The first 2 periods, they play the perfect game to beat the Rangers. Then in the third period, the Rangers start getting to their game, and the Flyers kind of just said, screw it, we'll just play your game too, and they come back and tie them 3 times. The Flyers over these last 5 games are playing legitimately good hockey, even if the record doesn't necessarily show it. And given the injuries on the back end, given the guys that are playing banged up, that's really freaking impressive. And now that the schedule turns, this could get exciting if they just take care of business.
No, it absolutely could. And looking at these next 6 games, Charlie, that 7-game stretch and really the last month bookended by the 2 Rangers games was a freaking gauntlet, man. It was really, really tough. And here they are, whether you want to just talk about the 7 or the full month, here they are right where they were, 3rd place in the Metro Division. And you look at what's coming up, and at Montreal, versus Chicago, versus the Isles, at Buffalo, at Columbus, at Montreal. 12 points on the table here. I gotta say, conservatively, they need 9 or 10. Like the way that we're looking at them play right now, like they have been playing quality hockey for the last 2 weeks after shit was falling apart. And then you pointed out, like maybe it's the Sean Couturier scratch that kind of threw that bomb into the room, woke everyone up. There's a little extra here. What do you think of these next 5-6 games? Like, I can't call them must win because it's you don't automatically get eliminated if you don't. Like a must win game is a game 7, you know. But shit, man, these are huge games against teams that, considering how well you just played against cup contenders, if you play that way against these teams, you're going to go 6-0.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, listen, the main thing here is obviously we all look at these games and these are easy wins, but it could be really daunting when you have the fact that the Washington Capitals are right on your tail and they are winning games right now. So you cannot take any of these games lightly. And I'm looking at that Islanders game. Obviously, like they've cooled off, but what a great way to just kill them right then and there. But now these 6 games, obviously extremely winnable games, but nothing is guaranteed. Number 1 in this league, and number 2 with the Flyers.
It's the freaking Flyers. Like the goaltending they're getting.
That's true too.
Tough to say. Like, oh yeah, put 2 points on. Like, mark down 2 points tonight. Like they're scoring a little more, and that's great. But these next 6 games are maybe bigger than the previous 7, Charlie.
Yeah. In a way, again, you got to take care of business, but it's undeniable the schedule opens up. Like our friend Kurt tweeted this out today, Kurt from Broad Street Hockey, from Dom's model. And it looks at the strength of schedule of the remaining games for all the teams in the NHL. Now, up to this point, the Flyers have had the 4th most difficult schedule of any NHL team. Like through, what are we at? 73 games now? There's 9 games remaining. Yeah. So through 73 games, the Flyers have had the 4th most difficult schedule. Over the final 9 games, the Flyers have the 30th most difficult schedule, the 3rd easiest. So things do open up dramatically for them. They got through the gauntlet. Did they rack up as many points as they could have? No, they didn't. They could have definitely squeezed out a few more without a doubt, especially in these overtimes. But now they really should be able to cruise, especially if they keep playing as well as they're playing from an underlying standpoint. Like, you know what? Yes, Felix Sandstrom, if he plays in games, it'll be scary. Yes, I'm a bit concerned that Sam Ersson might be starting to wear down. However, if they keep holding teams to, sub 25 shots on goal a night, they're going to win a lot of games. And yeah, I'm not saying they're going to win every single one because hockey's weird. It's a sport played on knives with a bunch of guys flying around with knives on their feet. Like, weird stuff happens. But in the grand scheme of things, if they play this well, and this was the mantra you heard from a lot of players on the Flyers after the game. Like, this is what Scott Laughton said. Basically, like, look, sucks that we lost. We really wanted that game. We feel like we gave away a point, but we play that way the rest of the way, we're going to win a lot of games. And he is 100% right. They just got to keep playing that way. That's the thing. They can't let up just because they're playing against Montreal now and not the Rangers and not the Panthers and not the Bruins. They have to treat these not so good teams the same way they treated the really good teams. We'll see if they can do it.
Absolutely. And before we get into maybe the most important thing in these next 6 games, I want to tell you about our presenting sponsor today. It's our friends at Mortgage CS. They're a presenting sponsor today and every day for PHLY Flyers. Listen, the spring purchase market, it's here and it's heating up quickly. Many clients, especially first-time home buyers, they're reaching out to Mortgage CS now because they want to be ready when the rates do eventually drop. This is not a unique idea. It's what everyone is doing. That means there's going to be limited inventory and strong demand, so competition for housing will remain extremely fierce throughout the year. So you need to get in touch with Mortgage CS to prepare and ensure you will be able to stand out and make the strongest offers possible. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or you're looking to refinance, or you just want to know what you have to do to qualify for a mortgage when the time is right for you, Mortgage CS should be a consideration no matter your situation, because Mortgage CS is made up of honest, good people who always work hard to not let their clients down. But don't take it from me. Check out their reviews on Google. Spoiler, They average 5 stars. Let's take a look at their most recent review from 3 or 4 days ago. It's from somebody named Corey. He writes, "These 5-star reviews are no joke," and now he quotes his realtor. "Corey, your mortgage team is iconic. I've never seen a team so responsive, professional, and effective in all my years as a realtor." He says, "This was my realtor on closing day. Even these words don't do Mortgage CS justice. I closed on my home in record-breaking competitive housing market, and they 100% made it happen. If it wasn't for their speed, proactive communication, attention to detail, expert-level guidance, and care through every step of the process, it wouldn't have happened. The platform/tools were easy to follow. They were there for us every step of the way and gave us the confidence and support we needed to get this done fast. Thank you, Maggie, Shannon, Ben, and Alec, for making this experience so seamless and for being so proactive throughout. I'll be recommending you to everyone, just like all these other happy clients of yours." This is exactly what I've been telling you about Mortgage CS all season. So when you hear the word mortgage, think of Mortgage CS, think of Ben and Alec. Save Ben's telephone number. The CEO is giving you his number right here, 267-391-7425. You can also email Ben at mortgagecs.com. Call or text anytime, day or night. And if you're not in the housing market, talk some Philly sports. I bet you he gets an answer. I bet you he gives you more answers than John Tortorella will. Check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY to get started today. This advertisement is not a commitment to lend or extend credit. Mortgage CS is an equal housing opportunity mortgage broker. All loans are subject to credit approval. Certain restrictions may apply. Company NMLS ID number 1464766. Visit mortgagecs.com for more information. All right, Charlie. It's time to talk a little Sam Ersson.
Okay.
We got a super chat last night. We got to it after you were done your hit with us. So I wanted to run something by you here. Basically talking about Sam Ersson's ceiling and how he is a number 2 at best. I don't know if defended him, but just kind of pointed out the circumstances of this situation. He is most likely going to finish the season with a save percentage right around league average. Also, he was supposed to be the straight backup this year. He played himself into a tandem role, and then when the crazy stuff with Carter Hart unfolded, he became this team's number 1. He's dealing now with a defense he's unfamiliar with. He just learned some of these dudes' names over the last couple of weeks. I mean, I guess Jinning and Adder he got to play with last year in the AHL, but it's a whole different world now. We all know the different circumstances. Overall, what do you think of Ersson, and what do you think of what we've seen out of him down this stretch?
So I guess what I'll say is that I don't know yet. I don't know yet what he is. I can say with certainty I believe he's a quality NHL goalie. He's an NHL caliber goalie, without a doubt. This is not a Felix Sandstrom situation where I don't view him as an NHL player. Ersson's an NHL goalie. I don't know whether he's a number 1, whether he's a number 2, whether he's best served in a 1A, 1B situation. I'm not sure yet. What I can tell you is that I agree. I think he's been thrown into a difficult situation, and he's done pretty well given the circumstances. Not amazing. It's not like he's putting up Vezina numbers, but he's done pretty well. And even the advanced metrics, you look at his save percentage, and obviously it doesn't look that great, but going by goals saved above expected, which accounts for the quality of the shots he's facing, he's still stopped more pucks than you would expect. He's at plus 2.93, which is actually higher than what Carter Hart delivered this year. That said, people even before the off-the-ice stuff were frustrated with Carter Hart, so that might not be an endorsement either. I do think part of this, and again, if we want to rewind the tape back to when Sam Ersson was given the number 1 job by default, when Hart took his indefinite leave of absence and then was charged, I said, please don't turn on Sam Ersson just because he might have some struggles in the midst of a playoff race with the full workload in an unprecedented situation for a team that none of us expected to make the playoffs going into the year. I continue to say that. I am not saying that you have to come away from these games thinking Sam Ersson is definitely the answer, because I don't think anybody is. I don't think anybody is coming away from these games certain that Sam Ersson is going to be the, no doubt about it, above average number 1 goalie who will be leading this team 3-4 years down the line. I don't know if he's that good, and heck, the Flyers might have better goalies in the pipeline than Sam Ersson. Kolosov obviously is on the way. Zavragin's killing it. They used a 2nd-round pick in Carson Bjarnason last year. They got guys coming who might push Sam Ersson down even by no fault of his own. Maybe they'll just be better than him. But I do think Ersson has shown enough that we shouldn't disregard the possibility that he could be a number one, because as you correctly note, these have been tough circumstances, and I think he is keeping his head above water, I think is probably the best way to put it. And if a rookie goalie can do that, given these difficult circumstances, given the workload that he's been getting really since the Hart thing all went down, if he can do that, I'm willing to give him the next year or two to show that he can take another step and become that number one. I don't know if he will, but I think he's earned the right to get a real shot. And that's kind of where I'm at with him.
And if I could just add, because Charlie is spot on with everything, but like with such an important position as the goalie, like everyone's process is not the same. Like, I'm not saying Sam Ersson's going to be the starting goalie for the Flyers, but if he is going to be that guy, like I don't expect him here in his rookie year to steal that position away, but he's shown us a lot of good flashes that, yeah, he can potentially be the number one guy. So I think it's just too premature to say he's the number two, because quite honestly, we need to see more from him. And by the way, we're knocking on the door of the playoffs. I want to see what he can do in a playoff-like situation too.
That's being thrust into this playoff race as a rookie when he was never supposed to be the guy this year is obviously like a circumstance all to itself. And then you realize like the reason why he was thrust in here, and you have a defense in front of you that's completely in flux, and there's legitimately no viable alternative. So you have to play every game, bud. Sorry. But it's the thing that has impressed me most about Ersson. And again, I don't know. I'm waiting to evaluate him. Let's get through this season. Let's get through, hopefully, the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I kind of just want to further I just need more info. But the thing that's impressed me most about him, he seems to have the short memory. He's got that intangible tool that you absolutely need. A bad game does not mean he's going to have a bad week.
Yeah.
And that's gigantic. You have to, we've talked like a quarterback. You throw an interception, you have to think, guess what? Next one's going 80 yards for a score. A closer gives up a home run, next ninth inning, you're the man still. You're going to strike three dudes out. That seems to be that internal mentality he has. That's probably what's impressed me the most about him. I would like to see a little more consistency. I don't think we're going to get it. And as you point out in the outline, Charlie, the workload is real, right?
Yeah, I think so. And this is from our friend Alex Appleyard, obviously part-time contributor at PHLY. First 20 games for Sam Ersson this year, 911 save percentage, last 23. So this is since January 18th, 880. He's getting a lot of games. I mentioned this on the podcast a few days ago about the pace that he's on, about how since the All-Star break, since taking full control of the workload, because that was when it was obvious that Carter Hart was not coming back this year, if ever, he has been on pace to basically the pace of getting like 65 games over an 82-game slate. And like two goalies last year did that over a full season. One was Connor Hellebuck, the other was UC Saros. Like, these are the Vezina guys. And then this was a reason why I was opposed to the idea of giving him all 10 games the rest of the way, because that would bump that pace from a 2.5 month time span up to over, talking about like Martin Brodeur style workloads, which is really nuts. And my thing is, he might already be wearing down. I don't want to expedite this so he has literally nothing left, even if they get in the playoffs. And then the Flyers get swept because they give up 6 goals every night, and then everyone wants to, basically send Stam Ersson, to jail because they hate him so much. That was a bad metaphor, but seriously, like fans legitimately turn on goalies so quickly. I don't want them to turn on Sam Ersson because he's overworked, not because he's not good. And I could see that happen if they overwork him. That's kind of my concern on that front. A point I will make, though, and this is me diving deeper into the numbers here. I just brought up on Evolving Hockey since the All-Star break. So since Ersson's gotten the full brunt of the workload, he's still right at break even in terms of goals saved above expected. Now, that doesn't mean he's dominating. I would much rather my goalie be stopping more pucks than expected than stopping exactly as many pucks as expected, because if he's that true talent goalie, he's probably not a number one. But by stopping, he's basically at plus 0.26, which essentially is break even. He stops exactly as many pucks as the quality adjusted metrics say he should have stopped since he's become the Flyers' unquestioned number one. At the very least, that is keeping the Flyers in games. That's giving them a chance most nights in aggregate. And given where they're at right now, like that's enough for me that's enough for me from Ersson at the moment, given the circumstances, given the playoff race, given the team in front of him, given everything. It's enough that now that he's getting a very large workload, he is basically performing at league expectation. That's enough for me for now. And let's see where it goes from there.
Billy, you brought up a good point last night. Potentially bringing in a veteran goalie to pair with Sam Ersson could be really big, not only for him, but just for the room in general.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, I am excited about the idea of Alexei Kolosov next year. And listen, say through Christmas, he's got like a sub-1 goals against for the Phantoms or something. Yeah, guess what, bud? You're the goalie. Congratulations. But let him beat two guys out for it. Like, let him get his time with the Phantoms. The Flyers believe that to be very important for pretty much all prospects to get some AHL time. Like, no, Matvei Michkov in all likelihood will not be playing in the AHL, but, you know, most guys probably will. They think Jamie Drysdale was rushed to the NHL by Anaheim, and this is kind of a development time for him. Next year, it should be Sam Ersson in tandem with a veteran, and then figure it out from there. Yeah. Like, if Ersson goes through a bad spell, it needs to be a veteran that you can, oh my God, start 3 times in a row. Like, at no point since Carter Hart took his leave of absence has there been like, oh, well, you know, Ersson just needs like a week. Guess what? You ain't getting it, bud. Like, you have to go play. That's just all there is to it. If you can have someone who could maybe take over for a week, 10 days at a time, and then Ersson can get back in there and you split the starts, so maybe it's 55-45. Like, that could be huge for him, and then you figure out what the rest of the goaltending situation is from there, and I think that could be very beneficial. But for right now, it is what it is. Yeah. It's going to be Ersson. I know Charlie doesn't want him to play all, you know, now there's 9 games left. He's going to play 7 of them, though, 6. Like,
yeah, he's going to play a lot.
He's going to play 90% of the last couple, you know. True. It's going to be most. And I don't see a difference between 10 and 9 to me. Like, who cares? But I get it. There's a back-to-back. Like, say in the first game, you know, he faces 40 shots instead of the 15 they gave up to Florida. All right, you should probably start Sandstrom the next game and just cross your fingers that he can make a save or two. But I'm looking forward to seeing how this all unfolds with Ersson. I'm just not ready to make any evaluations about him yet because, my God, what's been thrown at him is I can't compare it to anything. Yeah, like, the only thing I can compare it to is Bobrovsky in 2011 when, like, his girlfriend couldn't get a visa. He didn't speak any English. They tried to ask him how much, like, hey, what's the most games you ever played in a row over in Russia? And his answer's like, Bob. Yeah, and these are wildly different. That was a veteran-laden team with high expectations. This is a totally different circumstance. I don't know what compares to this. The point is, Sam Ersson, he has had no opportunity to chill. Charlie's on like a half-second delay, so I'm like waiting for my jokes to land. And I'm like, okay, I can move on. Sam Ersson, no chance to chill. So we need to bring the chill to him. Maybe, just maybe, he needs to find an ice-cold Coors Light. This team, they drive us absolutely nuts. Sometimes we need to chill. There's no better way to chill than with that ice-cold Coors Light. So whether you're freaking out about the goaltenders, the injuries, playoff seeding, whatever it might be, you need to find the Blue Mountains in the back of your fridge and enjoy a beer as cold as the Rockies. Because when everything surrounding your favorite hockey team is on fire, sometimes you just got to chill. When you choose to rise above it all, choose chill, choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY hockey. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. What do we want to do next? Let's save this for last. Let's do some mailbag questions, Charlie. We didn't finish we didn't finish mailbag Monday. On Monday, as you know, we never once have, I don't think, in the history of this show. So let's get to, we have a pair of questions both about Adard and Ginning that I want to get to. The first one is from Philly Insider Podcast. How have you felt about Jennings Adder in the past few games? And what do you expect the pairings to be if Sealer and one of Drysdale Risto comes back? And JMU fan also said, do you think Adder or Jennings has played well enough to force themselves into being a part of the future? Also, do you think Garianov, we'll get to the Garianov part second. Just for Jennings and Adder, how do we feel about what we've seen out of this team? I have to say, I was listening to, I think one of the intermission reports with Mertitas and Smith the other day. Mm-hmm. And they mentioned how these, remember Victor Mete and Louis Belpedio? They played this year. I forgot all about that. These are the 13th and 14th defensemen to play for this team so far this year. And the team has turned in some really good defensive efforts. Now, listen, it's not just about the 6 defensemen. It's about the forwards committing to defense. It's about the structure as a whole. But if you had just 2 dudes playing 15 minutes a game that didn't belong, you'd be getting blown out of the water, and that hasn't been the case for the most part since they've come into the lineup. Charlie, what do you think about the Adder and Jennings pairing?
So I want to preface this because I feel like this actually will give this opinion even more credence. I want to preface this by saying I am a noted Adam Jennings skeptic, but I am also a noted Ronnie Adder believer. Like, I am high on Adder, I am low on Jennings. This has been the case for a really long time. I don't particularly think highly of Jennings' upside. I think he is basically, his upside is, in my mind, has always been what Robert Haig ultimately became. Not what we hoped he was going to become, but what he ultimately became, which was like a passable number 7. Adder, on the other hand, I think his upside is something like a bigger, faster Radko Gudas, which would be awesome. That said, this pairing by the numbers has been doing really well. And I'm going to give you some numbers here that might surprise you because, honestly, they surprised me going into last night's game, and I think they kind of only got better. So in terms of expected goals for percentage, they've been together at the NHL level for 67 minutes so far this year. When they've been on the ice, the Flyers have collected 66% of the expected goals. They've generated about 59% of the shots on goal, about 59% of the shot attempts, and about 65% of the actual goals. Now, this pairing is getting sheltered, to be sure. The Flyers are picking their spots with the rookies. Brad Shaw is certainly trying to avoid having them out there against top lines, understandably. But you know what you need to be doing in sheltered minutes? You need to be killing it in sheltered minutes. Like, if you're getting sheltered, like, that was the big thing that killed them so much with Keith Yandel. They were sheltering the hell out of Keith Yandel, and he was still getting killed, which made it even worse.
He's the worst player I've ever seen.
Like, this pairing is getting sheltered. But in those cushy minutes, they are dominating. And that's really exciting because, I mean, I'm of the opinion with my personal bias that I think it's more Adder than Jennings. But Jennings ain't dragging them down. At the very least, they both look like NHL defensemen right now. And as a duo, they clearly have brought over the chemistry that they built up, not even this year, but last year when they played together almost exclusively in the AHL. They've kind of just picked up right where they left off there, just at the NHL level in the midst of a playoff race. And I'm not saying they've been perfect. They've made mistakes, but they've been a hell of a lot better than I expected them to be, given the situation they were thrown into and given the stakes of the games they're playing and given the quality of the teams they've faced. I've been really impressed by them.
I just love, we just had where'd it go? From Baby Ray, Jennings juked Rempe last night. That was really fucking funny.
And then he just BR Open Ice tried to make it seem like Jennings was scared of Rempe. No. Jennings made a good play on that.
Jennings didn't get run over and held and kept possession of the puck.
They got killed last night.
Rempe went down. That was really, really good stuff. I feel that was honestly that made the Jennings thing, his entire call up worth it. But I too have been impressed. I like, Charlie, that you mentioned shots on goal and shot attempts as different statistics there, because obviously with Ronnie Adder, those two things are going to be wildly different. And there's a 4% difference. As you noted, I expected it to be about 12, but it seems like he's gotten the shot a little bit under control since those first couple games when he was just straight Fulton Reeve, 1 out of 5. You ever hit the net with that thing? How about 1 out of 5?
1 out of 5.
Yeah, that's so. I too have been pretty impressed with those two. There's going to be at some point a backlog on the blue line again. Like, it's assuming we get some of these dudes healthy even into next year. Do you think either guy gets maybe an extended look, or is it like, hey, next year we think Emil Andre is going to be ready, and next year Jamie Drysdale is going to be here the whole season, hopefully barring injury and all that. Do you think there's a possibility these guys are more than just depth pieces for right now?
Well, they're going to have a tough decision with Adder in particular. I'm skeptical that Jennings is a guy that they really view as more, at least for now, as more than a, like, he clears waivers, is in the minors, and is a quality recall when guys get hurt, because that's always necessary. Adder's interesting because, like, one of the big reasons why they gave Zamula the shot they did this year is because he was no longer waiver exempt. He was a quality prospect for a long time, was kind of like shit or get off the pot time. We got to figure out what we have in him, or we might lose him for nothing. Well, that's kind of the situation Adder's going to be in next year. He's not going to be waiver exempt anymore. So in camp, like, I could see him making the team as the 7 who doesn't play every night, kind of the same way that Zamula was at the beginning of the year, because they don't necessarily want to risk another team grabbing a 6'3" right-handed shooting defenseman who can skate pretty well and also has some offensive ability. So Adder, I think, might have a place here. I don't think they are 100% convinced he is part of the future, but I don't think they've ruled it out either. Jennings has impressed, but I don't know if he's impressed enough that, like, he will have anything more than, like, a legitimate chance to make the team out of camp in a competition. Adder, to me, is more interesting because I just think he has a higher upside than Jennings. Like, to me, the thing that's going to hurt Jennings long-term in terms of his place with the organization is his spot is basically the spot that I think they are holding for Hunter McDonald. They love Hunter McDonald. He just signed an ATO with the Phantoms. He's going to start his pro career full-time next year. They're both left-handed shooting defensemen who don't bring a lot of offense, or defensively oriented guys, except Hunter McDonald is meaner and hits harder than Jennings. So I just think he might ultimately get pushed out by McDonald, whereas Adder's skill set is a little bit rarer, especially because he's a right-handed shooting guy, but it even goes beyond that. Like, he's just kind of a unicorn type defenseman. So I think Adder might be pushing himself into the conversation more. But let me put it this way. I think a month and a half ago, Jennings wasn't even in the conversation. Like, there were very reputable rumors that he was considering going back to Sweden at the end of the season. Now, suddenly, like, he's showing he can at least hold his own at the NHL level. He might have pushed himself at least back into the conversation, and good for him.
I was just going to ask you about those Sweden rumors because we got a question in the chat if there was, like, some sort of signed contract or anything. I just remember seeing those rumors, but I don't remember if there was, like, anything to them other than, yeah, he's not really in the Flyers' future plans, so he's just going to, like, go back home because what's the point?
Well, so speaking to that, because I do want to point this out, this is something that happens with European guys, and this is what, I mean, my understanding is this is what happened with Diego Zamula. Zamula, more or less, with his camp, kind of told the Flyers, like, look, if I'm not going to get a shot, I'm just going to go home. And it can be viewed as a threat, and it is to a degree, but it's also just a fact. Like, hey, I'm only here because I want to be an NHLer. If you don't give me a real shot to be an NHLer, like, I'll just go home and make money in my home country. And I have a feeling that Jennings kind of might have did the same thing, which is sort of like, look, like, I'm happy for the opportunity, but if it's just not going to work here, I'm just going to go back to Sweden and have a nice 10-year career in the SHL. It would not shock me in the slightest if that was floated to the Flyers, and might have played a role in him getting this look. But again, good for him. He's kind of running with it. If that's what happened, he's earned the right to be back in the conversation again.
It's funny. I just remembered, didn't something similar happen with Bobrovsky after the Brizgalov signing? He was like, I'm never signing here, so trade me or I'm going home. Like,
that's why they traded him.
Yeah, so that's why they ended up just like, all right, well, see ya. The Garyanov part of the JMU fan question, do you think Garyanov gets another look over Licksell at some point in these last 10 games? There's 9 left now. He says, we were told they were going to give Garyanov a look, but he got a few games. Do you think he gets back in at all?
Well, I mean, first off, guys might get hurt. If everybody stays healthy, maybe not. Licksell has shown flashes. I do think they are probably more invested in Licksell because they drafted and developed him. Guryanov's just like a dude they got in a trade because they took a flyer on him, and, like, you never know who could be the next Ville Leno, so why not? But look, I don't think the Flyers are in love with Ole Excel either. And if he has 3 or 4 games where he just stinks, yeah, I think they would put Gurianov in. I think honestly the more interesting question, and this is a question I'll throw to you guys, do you think there's any chance that Cam Atkinson gets into another game the rest of the year?
Wow.
Man, we talked about that a little. That was a mailbag question on Monday. Maybe if they clinch, or like you said, there are injuries, but how can you?
I think it's injuries at this point because, I mean, like, I'd rather see Will Excel, to be honest with you, out there. I mean, like, or Gurianov, to be honest with you. So I just don't see how you can.
No, there's a lot of, like we talked about Bobby Brink kind of this way. If neither Brink nor Atkinson are going to give me anything, and Brink's been good lately, I'm just like, at the time, Brink wasn't playing great. It's like, I know one, Atkinson, not part of the future, just based on age, contracts, etc.
Right.
Two, if neither's giving me anything, I want the guy with the chance of potentially one day giving me something. That could be Gurianov, that could be Lixell. Probably not, but you don't know. Like, Cam Atkinson, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like, other than he's a veteran, the respect, all that, which does go a long way in locker rooms. You can't totally write it off. But from a winning games perspective, there's probably 3 dudes on the Phantoms I'd rather see more than Cam Atkinson.
Yeah.
Ouch.
It's not fair. I'm just,
No, it is what it is. I mean, I guess, time comes for us all, and maybe Atkinson with a strong summer can bring himself back into being an every night NHL caliber scoring forward. But the guy we saw for the month before his most recent round of scratches was not that, unfortunately. And I like Cam Atkinson a lot.
It does seem like it was a lot of mental with Cam.
I mean, he went 14 or 15 games with scratches in there. 0 points.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. Like, everyone picks up a point here and there. It's not, except like Eric Johnson, who has 3 goals, no assists. That was incredible when the Flyers acquired him. But, defensive defenseman who's 37 years old. Like, that's what we're talking about. And he's putting up the same numbers as top 6 winger Cam Atkinson. You can't do it. Before we move on, let me tell you about our friends at FOCO. Listen. It's here, man. Baseball season. See, I got the new cap. You gotta check out FOCO, because FOCO has the absolute best officially licensed gear for all sports and and fandoms. And with baseball season here, man, you gotta gear up. It's always fun when a new season begins. Get something to make it feel new to you as well. Whether it's a hoodie, jacket, beachwear, even overalls, there's something for almost every occasion. And if you're in the market for some accessories, toys, or collectibles for your man cave, she shed, or podcast set, you've got to use FOCO for all your team gear needs. FOCO always has our back for Philly sports, and they have yours too. Get the best gear around. The link in the description of this show. And for all non-presale items, use promo code PHLY10. That's promo code PHLY10 for 10% off at FOCO today. And I know football season's still months away. Get your velour sweatsuits. Abso-freaking-lutely got to get a velour sweatsuit from FOCO. Where's my next question here? Oh, okay. So this is where I want to talk about torts.
Okay, here we go.
Charlie, I know you let the guy walk all over you, this soft Philly Flyers media and everything, but we're going to have to. It's so funny that I love this. Like, when there's controversies like this, I see comments to our show. Like, Charlie's replies, there's like one dude like, oh, he just doesn't respect the soft Philly media. And then I see another comment like, why do you guys bag on Torts so much? I bet him to win the Jack Adams, and I think he legitimately deserves it. But I don't know, man. When for the 3rd time this season, you put out your 4th line for overtime, and then you never see the puck and get scored on and lose, maybe he should answer for it. The captain has to be, nonstop accountability. How come the coach doesn't? But whatever. Let's get into this question from Ed Helinsky. Could John Tortorella be done after this season and coach and move to a front office job with the Flyers? That would be shocking.
It's like they flirted around with that before. Like, remember when he was in the box last year?
It's always been like an idea,
Yeah. No, last year it happened at the end of the year where he was up in the press box evaluating with Danny Briere and everything, and For whatever reason, he's sending his assistants out now a lot to address the media. Maybe it's just to give those guys some shine, for potential head coaching jobs this offseason, whatever it might be. I think it's going to happen eventually.
Okay.
But I don't see a dude. I mean, he's trying to fight official. Like, I don't see a dude. I don't see a dude ready to come out from behind the bench all that soon. Do you, Charlie?
Yeah, what I can tell you is that I've heard nothing around the organization to tell me or even hint that they are planning to kick towards upstairs, or that there have been conversations internally. Now, they might just be hiding all this. They did a good job of hiding the Cutter Gauthier stuff. So, hey, like, sometimes things just are hidden well. So maybe. But I can say that my read is that they fully expect John Tortorella to be the head coach to start next season. Now, look, who knows what happens the next season? We couldn't predict half the things that happened this year. So who the hell knows how next season plays out? So I'm only willing to speculate on what happens this offseason. However, the only thing I can throw out is, like, and this is, again, I've said this multiple times over the last couple of weeks, I do not want to put myself in the head of John Tortorella. However, could I plausibly see a scenario where John Tortorella has decided in his head that he is done after this year and just hasn't told anybody? Just like how he didn't really tell anybody until a couple days before they named Couturier captain that he wanted to name Couturier captain. Like, maybe. You never know. I don't know what John Tortorella is thinking. I will say that, like, if he has decided that he's going to retire at the end of the season, like, it would make the decisions of the last couple of weeks make a little bit more sense, because it's like, well, I don't give a shit about blowing up the locker room because I'm going to be gone in a couple of weeks, and hey, I don't care about media relations anymore because I'm out of here in a month anyway, so who gives a shit? I don't think that's the case. I just think this is John Tortorella being John Tortorella. But I can understand why someone could watch the events of the last few weeks from afar and start thinking, I wonder if this is just Torts going full scorched earth because he knows he's gone in a month. I get why people might surmise that. I do not think that's going to happen. At the very least, I don't think that the Flyers think that's going to happen. But you never know. This is the Flyers. They're the chaos organization. You never know.
Got to keep that seat warm for Craig Berube. Come on.
Gotta get Chief. I mean, as much as everyone loves Torts, he's not a former Flyer. And listen, you can only hold that position so long, bud. I want to take this while we're talking about John Tortorella. Charlie, what do you make of this? Like, the obvious answer is he just doesn't give a shit. But
Occam's razor, baby.
Yeah, like, he doesn't. We know this. But he has to address the media, doesn't he? Like, this is ridiculous.
One would think. Look, I don't want to go into too many details about this because this is something, like, I'm dealing with behind closed doors. There's also, and this is something I've articulated in our Discord. Again, become a diehard, join the Discord. I've articulated this in our Discord. One of the reasons why because I get people in my mentions sometimes being like, why aren't you holding John Tortorella accountable? Like, and I guess that presumably means on Twitter for not talking to you guys. Why are you letting him get away with this? It's very hard as a member of the media to be commenting on things where you yourself have a vested interest in what it is. Like, if a media person like me goes on Twitter and starts complaining about, like, John Tortorella won't talk to me, there is no way that I don't come across as white. There is no way. There is no way that I don't come across as sounding like an entitled media elite who thinks that I deserve everything at all times. Like, it's impossible. Like, that's just the way it's always going to come across. So I try to avoid having these confrontations, discussions, whatever you want to call them, in public. I don't think it's the right way to do it because, to me, no one comes out looking good. However, the coach has to talk to the media. Like, this is, to me, like, this isn't a, well, the media feels entitled. It's a sense of entitlement. Like, this is part of the head coach's job. Like, I think it would be maybe received differently in Philadelphia if, like, the Eagles lost a tough game to the Cowboys and Nick Sirianni just decided not to talk. Like, I would have to say that would be nuts. And that's kind of like what this is. Not to the same degree, because obviously 1 out of 82 isn't as important as 1 out of 16. And the Flyers will never be the Eagles in this city or just in the country.
And also the way the leagues are run, Roger Goodell would put Nick Sirianni in football jail.
Exactly.
Like, no,
exactly.
man, this is a TV show. You need to do the TV show thing. And the NHL doesn't give a shit. They probably think it's funny.
Yeah, but it is part of the head coach's job to stand up after the game and talk about the decisions the head coach made. Like, I was the one who asked Bradshaw the question about 3-on-3 overtime and about the line combinations. And I prefaced it by basically being like, this is probably a better question for Torts, but, and I didn't say, but we don't have him, so I have to ask you. But like, that was more or less what I was getting at. Like, honestly, it was kind of unfair for me to ask Bradshaw that question because it wasn't Bradshaw's decision. It was John Tortorella's decision. Unfortunately, I didn't really have a choice because John Tortorella wasn't there, and you have to ask someone. Like, it's a question that had to be asked. It was very much pivotal to the outcome of the game. I kind of felt bad I had to ask Bradshaw because Bradshaw shouldn't have to answer that. John Tortorella should have to answer that. And if John Tortorella wants to answer that with, I'm the coach, no comment, fine. That's an answer. It's a non-answer, but it's an answer. But I do think that he has to answer those questions because the fans deserve an explanation as to why the coach made the decisions that impacted the team that they care so much about. That's the way I look at it. It's just I'm not going to make a big thing out of it on Twitter or social media or whatever because I don't think it's becoming of anyone in the situation.
Do you think, and again, can't get in John Tortorella's head even if he tried, this is part of the whole... Well, they're talking about me, so they're not talking about 5 of the last 9 shots Sam Ersson faced going in. Like, could it be the day before he had to apologize for what he said about his goaltender? So you know what? I'm going to do this other thing. Like, I'm just trying to come up with reasons here. I don't know. It's fucking John Tortorella. He's nuts.
Taking distraction away.
I don't think it's that calculated. If I had to guess, honestly... Like, if I wanted to give you my honest answer as to why I think John Tortorella didn't talk to the media, I think it might actually have something to do with the Sandstrom thing in that I think Tortorella was extremely frustrated and angry with the fact they lost the game because he's a hyper-competitive person and was afraid that if he went up in front of the media, he would say something that he was going to regret. And therefore, his thing was, well, I'm just not going to talk to him. And like, I don't think this was a calculation of, well, it'll be a distraction because they'll be talking about me. I don't think it's that calculated. I think it is more single-minded. And whether that single mind was, I hate the media right now, so I ain't giving them shit, or that single mind was, the last time I went up there angry, I accidentally threw my backup goalie, who probably shouldn't even be in the NHL right now, under the bus, so I'm not going to do that again, so I'm just going to avoid talking. I think it's probably more likely to be something like that. That's just my theory, but that's my theory.
So, look, I wasn't alive for Buddy Ryan, but has there been a coach more polarizing than John Tortorella since then?
Man, that's...
Oh, we're always talking about him.
Yeah, we all... I mean, he is... Again, like,
there's some wild stuff, too.
When I write the headline for the show to go up on YouTube, always supposed to use a team name and either the coach or a player name... I would bet the person I've used most by far this year is John Tortorella's name. Like, he is the face of the franchise. Literally. It's like Tortorella, probably Gritty, and then like Travis Konechny. Like, that's
Travis Konechny. Fair.
He's polarizing and he's front and center, and it's just kind of odd that he ain't talking right now. It's fun. All right, the thing I want to close with now is 5 years ago. A little less than 5 years ago, was the 2019 NHL entry draft, in which the Flyers were originally supposed to draft at 11. They traded down. And at 14, they take Cam York. Of course, many Flyers fans, including everyone who was at Fieldhouse with us as part of the BSH draft party that night, wanted Cole Caulfield. Minutes later, the Montreal Canadiens come up at 15 and take Cole Caulfield. It seemed in the short term, not so sure about this one. Looks like the tiny goal scorer is going to be one hell of a player. He's in his third full season and in his third consecutive 20-goal season. He's in a bit of a drought right now. I just read an article, though. It's like he's working on other parts of his game. He's becoming better away from the puck. He's got more assists this year than he had in the previous 123 games of his career. So, like, he's doing some stuff. But Cam York, 27-21 time on ice last night. 9 of the last 10 games, York has gone over 25 minutes. He's played every game this year. On the whole, 9 goals, 19 assists, over 22 minutes average time on ice in what is essentially his first full NHL season. I'm going to put this poll up on Twitter. I want to know what you guys have to say, though. 5 years later, Cole Caulfield versus Cam York.
And here we are. I mean, look, listen, Cole's been a solid player, but I mean, Cam York, he's really stepped up in a huge way, especially defensively. We always make the joke about him becoming like the backup goalie, but like, he's become like a really big staple as far as the defensive pairings. And like, as we look forward here, like those defensive pairings become a strong part of this team. And Cam York has kind of been the face of that. I mean, like Cam York is heading in the right trajectory right now.
Yeah, it's tough. In all honesty, I still think I would go with Caulfield. And my reason is this. What we've been talking about all year is that the Flyers need high-end talent. I still think, despite Caulfield's somewhat regression over these last little bit, I still look at Caulfield as the player between the two more likely to be an impact top of the line, like true star than Cam York. I like Cam York. I think Cam York is going to be a rock solid top 4 defenseman. Like, but you know what kind of I see Cam York as ideally? I think Cam York on a real cup contender is like the Braden Coburn, Matt Carl. He's the rock solid top 4 defenseman who you stick him next to a stud and he can take half the game with them and just be awesome. But I don't think he is a number 1. I'm not convinced Caulfield can be a, impact 40 goal a year top line guy either, but I just think it's more likely to me than Cam York taking a further leap and turning into a true number 1. So that's just where I'm at. But I don't think it's clear cut, and I completely understand anybody who would take York over Caulfield.
Yeah, I'm torn. I'm thinking, like, it's hard not to. If they looking at what Tyson Forster has become, they get him the next year in the first round. Like, these two players, Caulfield and Forster, probably going to end up with the same number of goals this season. And then you see Bobby Brink. They use what they traded down for in the first round. Then they move up in the second round to get Bobby Brink at like 34. It's hard not to kind of take all that into consideration. I agree with Charlie that, yeah, Cole Caulfield could very well end up being like a consistent 35, 40 goal scorer. And whatever the other end of that defensively is for Cam York, I don't know if he's that top guy that Caulfield could be. But right now, man, Cam York is taking the bulk of the minutes for a team that's probably going to make the playoffs. And Cole Caulfield has scored a bunch of goals in this league, and his team fucking stinks. Like, I know you can't put it on one guy. I know this is a team sport. Like, it's very hard to put anything on one dude. Sidney Crosby's having an MVP year, and his team's going to miss the playoffs. Like, I never thought I'd get to this point, but I think I'm leaning a little bit more York right now. But that is with Bobby Brink and then Tyson Forster the next year kind of as part of that package.
Especially like the strides that Cam York has taken this year. That's what makes you feel so good about him in the future.
I think the big question for me, and this is why these debates they're the perfect debates for radio shows, for shows like ours, for hangouts at the bar. Like, they're perfect because you do wonder about the butterfly effect. Like, if they take Caulfield, do they then say, well, we don't need to take Forrester because we don't need a sniper? Do they prioritize Owen Tippett in the Claude Giroux trade because they're not so obsessed with getting a sniper because they already have Cole Caulfield and he's already scoring goals at the NHL level? I don't know. Like, maybe they don't have, if they take Caulfield, maybe they don't have Forrester and Tippett, two guys who I think we all of us view as key parts of the long-term future. Maybe they take them anyway. I don't know. But that's where you get into the interesting thing of, well, if they already have that sniper, do they go for Forster or do they take somebody else? And then who do they take? Is that guy a bust? Is that guy as good as Forster? And the debate just goes on and on and on,
Charlie, we just had a great comment, if they don't have the star potential forward already, do they pass on Matvei Michkov?
Oh.
Like, who's to say?
I still think they go with Michkov. Maybe
Montreal, if Montreal doesn't have Caulfield,
are
Montreal. They like, well, we need a star potential forward. We got to take this guy.
That's interesting. Because, I did hear those rumors that part of the reason why they passed on Michkov was because they felt like our future forward core is small enough.
It's small, yeah.
We don't need another small skill guy. Yeah, maybe if they have a bigger dude instead of Caulfield, maybe they do consider going with Michkov. I don't know. It's an interesting point. These are why these debates are so much fun.
They are, and I'm glad we got to it today. That's pretty much all the time we have for you today. I got to tell you, before we get out of here, you've probably heard the news. If not, Phillies opening day has been postponed. It was supposed to be Thursday. It is now Friday, and we are working out the details for the PHLY Phillies event that was supposed to be down at the Sportsbook in South Philly. It's being worked out. It looks as if everything's going to get moved to Friday. I just checked the messages. We don't have confirmation yet. So you all have to make sure you keep an eye on our socials. Watch PHLY Phillies tomorrow and make sure you are keeping an eye on at PHLY Phillies and at PHLY Sports so you know exactly where to go for the best pregame party in town. It's going to be with Jamie. It's going to be with Renee. It's going to be with John down in South Philly tomorrow. Also, make sure you check out that Sixers watch party we're doing as well. Check out their socials for that. There it is. Deke's Barbecue, Friday, March 29th at 7:30. So after the Phils game, go get yourself some barbecue at Deke's. It's going to be a great time.
$3 beers, guys.
Yeah, also presented by Coors Light. They're our friends. They're the Sixers friends. We love it. All right, that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers today. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, you know where to follow us right here on YouTube. Make sure you have your reminders set so you never miss the live show. At PHLY_Flyers on Twitter. Search our title for our podcast. You know what it is. All right, my name is Bill Matz. For JP Zapata and Charlie O'Connor, we will be back here tomorrow for a pre- and post-game show. Make sure you check out our pre-game show. I meant to plug that like 3 times today. Never did. We are going to be here for the pre-game at 6:30 on Thursday.
Hell yeah.
So join us. All right, my name is Bill Matz. We already did this part. Have a great week, Philly.
We all silly like the mayor.